Well, good evening, Cedar Falls. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, November 21st, 2022. I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Harding. Ganfield.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Ganfield, or Councilmember Harding absent, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now begin the regular meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For our first item of business tonight, is there a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 7th?
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Any from the public? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That does pass. And Madam Clerk, do we have any agenda revisions tonight?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have no special presentations tonight, so that'll take us to public forum, where speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. Does anyone from the public wish to speak in public forum tonight? Yes, Ms. Beach. Just provide name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Good evening in your lovely new setting. I appreciate it. Rosemary Beach, Western Home Community, Cedar Falls, Iowa. I wanted to read you quickly the newspaper article that was in Sturgis, Michigan. You know, we had our great-great-great-granddaughter of William Sturgis here. So I'm going to read as fast as I can read, okay? This was the article written by a gal there. Most everyone in Sturgis celebrates Judge John Sturgis, says his great-great-granddaughter, Jackie Persing. Less is locally known about his son, William Sturgis, although he was honored as part of this year's Oak Lawn Cemetery tours. That isn't the case in Cedar Falls, Iowa. There, William was the first permanent settler in 1845, coming from Sturgis at age 18. The area first was called Sturgis Falls, but later renamed. A festival called Sturgis Falls Celebration takes place there each year. Over the summer, Persing made the trek to Cedar Falls to participate in the festivities. She had been invited in 2019 by Rosemary Beach and also was invited to be in the parade, but circumstances arose at the time preventing her from going. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, Persing said. It was the first opportunity I had to go. Persing decided if she was to make the trip, she was going to do it upright and stayed in the historic Black Hawk Hotel. She also met up with Sturgis graduate Gretchen Woodbrick, who now lives in Cedar Falls. What is normally a city of 40,000 people becomes one of 200,000 during the 3-day festival, Persing said. There's a 2-hour parade, class reunions and activities in every park, including Sturgis Park. And this year, performances by the U.S. Marine Band and the Air Force Brass Ensemble. It was a good experience, Persing said. I had a wonderful time, actually. This year marked this 46th Sturgis Falls celebration, and Persing hopes to return for the 50th. Beach, who helped begin the first festival, had plenty of questions about Sturgis, Persing said. There's quite a connection, Persing said. We already have a sister city. It's too bad we can't call each other something, a cousin city or a descendant city. So I just wanted you to read that. I'd like to give this to you. You can put it in your files.
Okay, thank you.
And other than that, we had a grand celebration. And if I have 1 second more, I would say I read this whole thing, and I didn't find one word about bathrooms.
I can take those, Ms. Beach. Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to speak in public comment? Ms. Brammer, name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Mary Brammer, and I live at 104 East 9th Street in Cedar Falls. Many of you here tonight knew Hugh Pedersen. I was honored, like so many others, to be able to call Hugh a good friend. Hugh preferred, in his quiet manner, to serve his community behind the scenes, but he served us all in so many ways. He was a supporter of the College Hill Merchants and for many years owned Henry W. Myrtle Gallery on the Hill. He was one of the original organizers of the College Hill Neighborhood Association and started the highly regarded College Hill Arts Festival on the UNI campus. He was one of the drivers to facilitate the donation of the Charles Hearst home to the city and the resulting Hearst Center for the Arts. Hugh lived in and loved the College Hill neighborhood. Those of us who knew him well often visited about how he'd be devastated by the decline of the trees on Searly Boulevard. Last spring, I met with Chase Schrage, Brian Heath, and city arborist Brent Morris on the boulevard to talk about what could be done. I brazenly offered to ask Hugh's friends to donate all of the replacement trees, and the city generously volunteered to remove the dead trees and stumps, regrade the ground, and plant the new trees. So the project started. Brett selected a beautiful crabapple tree and placed the order. A little over 40 letters were sent to the Friends of Hugh requesting the donation of a tree in his honor. Within weeks, there were over 25 respondents. Familiar names like Breitbach, Anderson, Coelty, McGee, and Glasscock were on the list. This successful campaign reflects the love of his friends, but also speaks to the high regard the community has for the College Hill neighborhood. Most of the new trees are now planted, and new banners designed by local artist Hannah Tucson are being placed. With this project and others, I have been struck by what appears to be a renaissance on the Hill. The council recently approved spending for an RFQ seeking proposals for the long-anticipated Hearst 2.0 expansion. Over 325 member-strong Friends of the Hearst will play a role in support of that effort. The Friends recently held an Art and Tapa tour of 4 of the city's homes. Citizens Schrad, Beatty, Mallon, and Lucien Van Allen opened their homes to over 65 participants and raised over $7,000 in support of the Hearst. Further up the street, the College Hill Partnership, led by citizen volunteers like Chrisman, Martin, Hawbaker, and Lonsberry, are collaborating with the city to increase the accessibility of the Searly Park Playground and build a new shelter that will allow increased programming for concerts, poetry, and movies in this treasured older neighborhood. Continuing on to Pedersen Plaza, the city is starting a Dry Run Creek project that will include a walkway over the creek from Olive Street to the plaza on College Street. This new walkway will allow opportunities for the Art and Culture Board, along with the Public Art Committee, with their citizen volunteers like Brennan Hall, Hoekstra, Meeman, and Perry, to explore new cultural experiences for residents, visitors, and students alike. A wonderful College Hill resident that we unfortunately have also lost, Lori Rackstra, over 20 years ago, sent me a poem that describes this community spirit. It partially says, "If you give up your crop out of carelessness, not you, not others will be fed. But if you tend to your own patch to completion, no matter how insignificant, you will have raised a miracle. Your small garden of life will feed yourself and your village." I want to celebrate tonight all those names, both mentioned and unmentioned, who through community service have raised just such miracles, and also our city staff, along with council support, for their assistance in all of these initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Breyer. Does anyone else wish to speak for public comment? Mr. Manning. His name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hi, folks. It looks beautiful in here. My name is Bob Manning. I live at 2908 West 3rd Street in Cedar Falls. I'm the exec officer for the Cedar Valley Home Builders Association, And we're here. There's some of us just in support, and somehow I got elected to do the speaking. So we wanted to talk about what we consider a critical situation, and that's the availability of buildable residential lots in Cedar Falls. There were, when I first got some information, there were 12 residential lots in Cedar Falls, and this represents about a 3-week supply of buildable lots. Now, there are others that are in personal inventory, in a company's personal inventory, that are not for sale. They use those to build on for their customers or clients as they come along. But with 12 lots, and my understanding is now they're down to 7 lots, and the prices are in the range of $100,000 or more. So it wasn't long ago, $80,000 was the standard for buildable lots in Cedar Falls area. That's jumped up rather quickly. It was also pointed out that the city revenue may be substantially less in the future because of the building permit fees that the city collects and the utility hookup charges that are available. And so we just caution or politely suggest that you consider that in your budget for 23, 24, or yeah, it's 23, 24 that you'll be budgeting for. Is that correct?
24 for starting this next June.
Okay. The residential building outside of Cedar Falls looks as this as an opportunity for them to expand their building. And that would leave Cedar Falls behind, of course. The cities of Hudson, LaPorte City, Waterloo, Raymond, Jessup, Dyke, and Waverly are all looking at this as an opportunity for them to build more houses in their community. For potential employers looking to work or move their business or a portion of it here to Cedar Falls, they're saying, well, there isn't any housing. So perhaps industry will be here, but the housing won't be. It'll have to go somewhere else. And which one of us has had a son or a daughter, a brother or sister that's been out looking at houses and they say, I can't find anything we can afford. Interest rates are different, not as bad as the national media points it out to be. They say interest rates have doubled, and that's true, but a 3.5-year fixed $100,000 mortgage compared to a 7% 30-year fixed $100,000 mortgage is an increase of $250 of monthly payment. That's real payment. That's real money that comes out of people's pocket. But it's not so bad when you break it down to the dollars. And that's what we always like to do, is show it. What effect does it have to people's pocketbooks? And it'll take a while because I'm older than probably all of you combined. I've seen house interest rates go up and interest rates come down. And it takes a while for the market to adjust to that, but it will adjust. If 7% is the new rate, although I've just heard that it's down to 6.68% on an average on Fannie Mae's national mortgage average system.
1 minute remaining.
1 minute? Yep. Okay. Then I'll just skip to a couple other points. If a new price for buildable lot is in the $130,000 range, which I'm just suggesting that everything is up about 25% from a couple years ago, and if $100,000 is the current rate or the current mortgage amount that we're calculating, then it would normally be 20 to 25% of a new house is the land that it's building on. That would mean that the housing would be in the neighborhood of $520,000 to $650,000. And that's certainly not hitting the middle of the target, the middle of the wheel. Real estate is a big wheel, and there's a cog missing in the middle, and it's going to come to a grinding halt, just like sticking a brake on that circle. One contractor developer has offered a sit-down meeting with staff or council or both to talk about his situation on why he's not building in Cedar Falls, and he used to develop and build in Cedar Falls, Iowa. So we consider this a critical problem. We don't have solutions at this time, and I don't like to come with a problem and not some idea to fix it, but there's a group that's working on how to fix that and would probably like to make a presentation down the road. So
Okay.
thank you
Mr.
very
Manning.
much for listening.
Does anyone else wish to speak for public comment tonight? Mr. Fairbanks, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Craig Fairbanks, 405 Spruce Hills Drive, Cedar Falls. Longtime resident of Cedar Falls, chose to move to Cedar Falls, love my city, love being here, love the things that we've done. But I want to talk about something else before I talk about the lot situation. But what I want to talk about is there was a fire over on Boulder Drive, and it happened to be my brother's. And he was unconscious and not responsive when they found him, and our fire department personnel revived him to give him a chance to figure out what we could do. They were, the fire department and the police department were nothing but absolute professionals, and I just wanted to thank them for that. They did a really good job. Even though my brother didn't survive, their care gave him a chance to make it through. And I know we've had lots of discrepancies and arguments about how our police and fire department work, but for my money, they're all professionals. They all do a good job no matter what title you put onto it, and we should be very proud of who they are.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbanks. We're very sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a tough deal. But going back to talking about the availability of lots, I think what needs to happen from my standpoint, having done this, is somehow it has to become more friendly and less acrimonious to get through the process. It's very difficult to do. And I know many developers who have decided that they decided to retire, just said that this is not worth the risk and the effort. I think that developers, whoever they are, put a lot of risk on the line. Sometimes it's their entire savings to be able to even do this, and they don't do it just because to make a buck. I think there's a big difference between what people think about developers and who they are and who they really are. Most of these people have been successful in business, and they want to help grow their community. For me, we like to build, just honestly. We like to build, and we like to make people happy. And we like to try to keep the cost in line as much as we can. But we need help. We can't do it on our own. So regulations are huge, no matter where you go. And there are some areas that we can address to make it more friendly for developers to come in and do some things. For me, I'm done. No more. It's just too tough. But I do have a son coming up that wants to be in the business, and I hope good things for him. But thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbanks. Anyone else wish to speak for public comment tonight or public forum? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to staff updates. And Mr. Gaines, do you have any updates for us tonight?
No updates tonight, Mr. Mayor.
I did ask for Director Birdie if he might just give a quick note about the events today over at the Public Safety Building, some of the promotions and activities we'd had. So, Mr. Birdie, if you'd like to just tell us who got promoted and what all happened there.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. Well, today with the appointment, 2 weeks ago with the appointment of Mark Howard to Chief of Police, that created some internal openings in the police department. Our captains and Chief Howard did interviews. So today we had a promotion ceremony. We promoted Brooke Hewer to captain, and I'll just tell you a little bit about her and Carson Barron. Brooke's been a police officer since 2000. She's been a lieutenant since 2005, so very experienced. She's worked every patrol shift, investigations, training. She has a bachelor's degree from UNI, and she'll be the first female to achieve the rank of captain at the police department. We have 7 captains in the public safety department, and 2 of those 7 are female. With her promotion to captain, that created a vacancy for lieutenant. Carson Barron was promoted to lieutenant. Carson has been a officer since 2016. He's a firearms instructor. He's on our SWAT team. He's worked investigations. He's worked every patrol shift. And Carson has a bachelor's degree from Wartburg College. And then we also had the pleasure of swearing in or doing the oath of office for 2 reserve officers. And their names are Christine Dubois and Tanner Ottman. Tanner is a small business owner here in the Cedar Valley. Christine is an engineer at John Deere. And they've been in the reserve program about a year, but now it's time to be sworn in and then start doing their training out on the street. So fabulous promotions, great to have the reserves to help our community. And so we took an opportunity today to promote them in front of their family and friends. So
Thank you, Director Birdie. And now, with that, I'll move us over to special order of business. Item 2 is continuation of the public hearing on the city's FY21 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, or CAPER, for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Programs. Are there any additional written communications filed, Madam Clerk?
I've not received any additional communications, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. And for staff, do we have any additional comments, Director Sheets?
Yes, I'll just give a brief overview of what's in the report that's in your council packet. Tonight is the public hearing for the Federal Fiscal 21 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. We refer to it as the CAPER for short. And this is a requirement from HUD that we need to do this to report on the progress of funded activities from July 1 of 2021 through June 30 of 2022. So the Housing Commission has reviewed this, recommended approval, but just in general, some of the information that we report out on are the service agencies that are funded through some of the CDBG funding and what they've accomplished. A little bit under 2,000 households assisted with the federal 21 funds, with access to food, mortgage and rent assistance, substance abuse treatment, and homeless shelters. So that's what we provide some funding for. We also had an owner-occupied rehab project that happened this past year in this funding cycle. Neighborhood access, we did a sidewalk infill project on Tucson and West 3rd Street with CDBG funds. And then the final activity was in neighborhood infrastructure improvements, doing sanitary sewer lining over 300,000 feet within 14 streets in the city. So those are the major accomplishments in the CAPER report this year.
Okay, thank you, Director Sheets. I'll now move it over to public comment. Does anyone from the public wish to speak in this public hearing on the item? Seeing none, then I will consider the public hearing closed for this item and take us over to 2D, which is a resolution approving and authorizing submission of the Federal Fiscal Year 21 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Programs. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been motion second. Is there any discussion from council? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sayers,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that takes us over to item 3, which is a public hearing on a proposal to enter into an agreement for private development and to consider conveyance of certain city-owned real estate to CF Storage LLC. Is there a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved. Second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Then we do receive and file that. And Madam Clerk, any written communications filed for this item?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. For staff comments, Mr. Gaines was going to do the speaking tonight since our Economic Development Coordinator, Shane Graham, is currently in the Netherlands on city business. So, Mr. Gaines, the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Mayor. Shane has currently been working, as you had mentioned, with CF LLC on a project for the last couple of months. It is a new mini storage facility on about 4.7 acres of land along Production Drive, just south of West Viking Road. The project is on Lot 18 of our West Industrial Park Phase 2. That lot is approximately 4.7 acres in total, only about 3.1 buildable acres when you start to look at the easements and setback area. The minimum building valuation in this particular project is about $1.4 million and expected to start next spring. just briefly talk about the city incentives in this particular case. The city incentives would be the Lot 18 of West Industrial Park. That's at 4.7 acres I just mentioned. The land incentive is consistent with our general economic development incentives that is offered by the city. Property tax incentive, there are no property tax incentives on this particular project. So the project will have a minimum assessed valuation of building evaluation of 1.4, but a minimum assessed valuation of $1.71 million. So,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gaines. And does anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, then I'll consider the public hearing closed for this item and take us over to 3A, which is the resolution approving and authorizing execution of an agreement for private development and approving and authorizing execution of a quitclaim deed conveying certain city-owned real estate to CF Storage LLC. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Open for council discussion. Does anyone wish to speak? Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Cyrus.
I have a conflict of interest, so I won't be voting. The only thing that I did have to say,
If you have a conflict of interest, you wouldn't be able to
yeah, I
speak
would
on
have
the
figured
item.
you'd say that.
Well, because it's the rules. So, with that abstention, yes, Councilor DeBur.
Well, I had asked earlier, as far as allowable, obviously this is allowable or it wouldn't be coming forward to us, but do we have a precedent of having this type of land issue in our industrial parks?
So this type of project is, yes, has been approved in other parts of the industrial park. I can't think of the exact address, but it's up by the,
Across from Viking.
yes, sir. Thank you. And there's another one that's out by Dalton's plumbing and heating building as well.
So the only requirement is the value of the build, not the number of employees, because they're not asking for any kind of incentive.
In this particular case, there is no employment requirement. That's correct.
Any other questions or comments?
How much it's the same size lot on 17 with that first right of refusal. Is that correct? Or is it larger?
I think it's relatively the same size. It may be a couple points of an acre different.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Gaines, is this a business that's already associated with one of those other storage units that we're talking about?
So I can't speak to that. Yeah, I don't know who's involved in the ownership of the LLC, or if that LLC is affiliated with the other businesses.
I guess, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
Mr. Gaines, I guess I'd ask, I didn't see in here the height on this particular storage building. I know most of them are going a little bit further upwards, including the Green Acres and some of those others we've seen in town. What's the height on this one and on that prominent corner? Have the neighbors had any availability to say anything about that, or is that even required on this type of development?
So the renderings I have right here, it looks like it's about 14 feet is the height, which if I'm correct in that particular case, it's going to be less than what our berm is out there that separates the neighborhood from the industrial park.
Was that rendering in the packet? Ron, was that rendering in the packet or no?
I don't believe it was.
Okay.
Just something I had in my file.
Councilmember Cruz.
Thank you. Do we not want economic development in the industrial park to have employees as a promotion for growing the city's employment base and that sort of thing? I mean, isn't that one of the objectives? Or not necessarily?
Well, I think, yes, generally we would like as many employees, as much economic development, but there is a variety of use that's out there as well. And I guess my only response is I know there is a need for this type of a unit out there, so in the community.
Yes, Councilor DeBur.
One other question, because this is kind of a gateway into the industrial park area. What kind of regulations have you placed toward the construction or the style or the look of the building?
So I know Mr. Graham has been working with Mr. Wingert on a number of those entrance features and materials, and just knowing that this is an area, I'd have to maybe defer to Mr. Wingert on some of the materials that they have.
Yes, if Mr. Winger, if you'd like to come forward and provide that information. And just state name and address for the record, please, sir.
Brian Winger, 2110 Flynn Drive, Cedar Falls. We've got a project here that I think will probably be one of the best looking storage facility sites you'll see probably across the state. We've worked with Shane extensively on, from day one, their number one requirement to even having a discussion about this project was, what's it going to look like as you make that corner and as you turn into the industrial park. So the first thing that I'll say is the whole exterior will not be, you won't see any steel on the exterior of these buildings. So as you drive down Viking and as you drive onto Production, all this side will be either a brick aesthetic or a cement fiber board aesthetic. So you won't see any of the typical steel that you would see on a normal mini storage facility. And so you'll see that. We've got extensive landscaping that's required there. And then you may see some units as you see the entrance gate, as you drive by the entrance gate within the facility. But the outside of the facility, if you just purely looked at that from close up, you wouldn't have any idea that there's storage units inside that facility as you go through.
So how do you access? Where's the overhead doors, or is it?
So we've got the outside being the facade that I kind of just mentioned. That'll be a facade that doesn't look like an industrial or a warehouse type building. In between each building segment, as you go down Viking Road or as you go up Production Drive, there'll be a fence similar to what you guys just installed along Green Hill Road. So it'll be an aesthetic fence. It's anything on the outside along Viking will be a solid material where you can't see into the facility. And so I think that as you go by and as you look at it, you won't see a typical storage facility from the outside. So it'll.
And this is all indoor storage? Or
No, this is outdoor.
It's outdoor?
Yep, there is an indoor storage, mini storage facility right across the street that was approved, I think, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
And this complements to it. And we do not, to answer your question, we do not have any other ownership in any of the other facilities that may or may not be in the industrial park.
Other comments?
Well, how tall is that fence that you just mentioned?
The back side of the buildings, I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I think the back side of the buildings that you'll see as you go around the outside, those are going to be at a minimum of 8. I think it actually goes up to 10 because the doors are 8 foot. But then the fences will actually go in between the buildings at probably no less than 6 to 8 feet.
Okay, other questions or comments? All right, and just for a procedural question or parliamentary procedure, on the matter of a member speaking on an item that they've abstained from, in our council rules, it says under Rule 1.9, duty to vote, conflict of interest, it says each member who is present when a question is stated by the presiding officer shall vote unless directly interested in the question, in which case the member shall abstain from voting. If the member refuses to vote when not excused, the member's vote shall be recorded to the negative. Well, in this case, it just says, in which case the member shall abstain from voting. But looking in, and I haven't been able to find it in Robert's rules, but asking for the parliamentarian, would it be appropriate for a member who's abstained from voting to participate in the discussion? In your understanding of Robert's rules?
Absolutely not. The reason for abstention is because the member has a conflict of interest, therefore should not be trying to persuade the body in one direction or another. Any comment could have that effect. And so if one has to abstain, one has to abstain from discussion as well.
Okay, thank you. And I will ask to clarify that in a future update of the council rules so that it would say, in which case the member shall abstain from voting or participating in the item. So it's nothing personal.
Mr. Mayor, that's fine with me.
Okay. I just want to make that it wasn't just me telling you not to do it.
That's fine.
That's how I took the comment.
You didn't know which way I was going to go anyway, so that's fine.
Okay. Thank you. So with that,
Mayor?
yes, Councilmember Cruz.
quick question comes to mind.
Please.
Is this type of project allowed in other areas in the Cedar Valley, or is it the type of thing that is needed to be in the industrial park to be built like it is? I mean, can you build it on any commercial area or any non-residential area? Just kind of curious.
It'd be a
I
general
think it's got to
question.
have the proper zoning. I know that
Yeah.
the industrial park does. I'd have to defer to the zoning ordinance to see what other commercial.
Yeah, I don't know offhand, but I do know that we reviewed a project recently on Midway Drive that was converting to a storage unit. So I believe there are some commercial districts where it's allowed, but I'd have to confirm which ones.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, one more
Yes,
question. I
Mr.
guess
Mayor.
I'm curious on this corner. Is it the incentives of being in the industrial park that are making this possible? Are there other areas in town where this would be a more suitable purpose than the industrial park that we're intending to bring in employees? I know there's not incentives for the employment factor on this one, but is that location better suited for
I
another
would have to interject on that as far as the relevance of the question to this item, because what's coming up is whether this item should be approved, not would another
Yeah.
place be better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned it is just because of knowing the neighboring properties there that are residences so close to that. I'm not certain that that's the best fit.
Okay.
But are there other, you've already assessed there are other areas that could work in the zoning?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Dunn.
I didn't think I had a comment, but as a person who at one time did have to utilize a storage facility, it was very close to my house. I feel like that was the beauty of that storage facility, is that if I was going to use it and needing to access it, it was great that it was close to my house. And in this case, I remember the facility, like, you wouldn't have known it was really there unless you were looking for it. So I didn't think I had any thing to weigh in on this question, but since those questions keep coming up, I remember that being an important thing to me as a person who utilized that facility at the time, that it was easily accessible to my home and neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? We can go to a vote then. Okay, if none, then it's been motioned and seconded to approve and authorize the execution of private agreement for development, approving and authorizing execution of the quitclaim deed, conveying certain city-owned real estate to CF Storage LLC. Requires a roll call vote.
Ganfield,
Nay.
Sires,
Abstain.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
DeBoer,
Nay.
Cruz,
Nay.
3 voting nay, 2 voting aye, and 1 abstention, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so that does not pass. And it takes us over to item 4, which is old business, passing ordinance 3020, amending chapter 16, offenses and miscellaneous provisions of the Code of Ordinances relative to use of consumer fireworks within the city limits upon its second consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any questions from the council or discussion from the public? Okay, seeing none, then back to council. And so it's been motioned and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Nay.
Schultz,
Aye.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
5 voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that does pass on its second consideration. We'll be back to the council for a third in 2 weeks. So then over to item 5, which is passing ordinance 3021, amending section 1823.5, powers and duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Code of Ordinances relative to removing 2/3 majority vote required by City Council to approve amendments to the city's comprehensive plan that are disapproved by the Planning and Zoning Commission upon its second consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Open for council questions first. Okay, any questions or comments from the public on the item? Okay, seeing none. And back to council for any final. Okay, so motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Nay.
Schultz,
Nay.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz,
Aye.
4 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that takes us over, so that does pass on the second consideration. We'll be back to council for a third consideration. Item 6 is passing ordinance 3022, amending Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to removing the 2/3 majority required by City Council to approve zoning amendments that are disapproved by the Planning and Zoning Commission upon its second consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Open for council discussion here as well. Okay, seeing none. Any questions or comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Fairbanks.
Craig Fairbanks, 405 Spruce Hills Drive. In considering this, and I thought about it for a couple of weeks, every time we pass an ordinance and people object, we're always told that it can always come back for reconsideration. This particular one, having observed the planning and zoning meetings, never got consideration. It was only a disappointment that we have to even consider the changes. This is a classic example of what should happen. It shouldn't take this much effort to actually bring something back to the table to consider when it isn't necessarily in the best interest of the public. And the council, and the council is our last governing body. Why would they not have the say? It's just puzzling to me, but thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fairbanks. Appreciate your comments. Any others from the public? Okay, seeing none, then back to council. Any final thoughts? Okay, seeing none, then it's been motioned and seconded for passing ordinance 3022, amending Chapter 26 of the Code of Ordinances relative to removing the 2/3 majority vote required by council to approve zoning amendments that are disapproved by the Planning and Zoning Commission upon its second consideration. Moved and seconded, requires a roll call vote.
Canfield.
Aye.
Sires.
Aye.
Dunn.
Nay.
Schultz.
Nay.
DeBoer.
Yes.
Cruz.
Aye.
4 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk, and that passes on its second consideration. And that takes us out of old business and over to the consent calendar. These items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member request to pull an item 7 through 10? Seeing none. Does anyone from the public request to pull an item 7 through 10 on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, then it's been moved, or is there a motion to, approve items 7 through 10?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those do pass. And takes us over to the resolution calendar, where these items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council requests that a specific item be considered separately. Now, item 11 is a new administrative item that we need for the new voting procedures, so I'll skip that one to go, as any council member requests to pull an item 12 through 20.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
12,
Councilor,
please.
wait, which number?
12.
12, okay, so Councilmember Ganfield asked to pull 12. Any other items from council? Any from the public for separate discussion? And we're more than happy to do so. Okay, seeing none, then is there a motion to approve items 13 through 20?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. And this requires a roll call vote.
Canfield.
Aye.
Sires.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
DeBoer.
Aye.
Cruz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us back to item 12, which is a resolution approving and adopting summary plan descriptions for the City of Cedar Falls Health Benefit Plans. Is there a motion to approve the item?
moved.
Moved and seconded. Councilmember Ganfield.
Yep, I just wanted to clarify, these are not an opportunity to adjust, correct? I'm asking, I guess, for clarification, since we have union negotiations already done, this would not be an opportunity to make any moves, and I wanted to make sure that they were equal between both unions.
So, Mr. Rogers, would you answer that?
So this is merely summarizes what our current contract is. So we would have to change the contract at some point, but not exactly right now.
Perfect. So just curious then, if it says it's a resolution approving and adopting, but if these are just summary descriptions, would would it be just as appropriate to do it as a receive and file? Or are we actually approving something then?
We are approving something, and it's a requirement under the federal law that we provide summary plan description.
Okay.
So we have to approve it.
We should do that then. Yes, okay. Thank you. So it's moved and seconded. Any other questions, comments from council or the public? Okay, so motion has been moved and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that takes us over to bills and claims, which item 21 is allowing bills and claims for November 21st. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any council discussion from the public? Moved and seconded, requires a roll call vote.
Ganfield,
Aye.
Sires,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
DeBoer,
Aye.
Cruz.
Aye.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us over to council updates and announcements. Does any council member have an update or announcement they wish to bring forward? Seeing none. Then over to council referrals. Do we have any referrals we'd like to bring tonight? Okay, seeing none. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. And also for this group, just so the meeting's over, but I just wanted to find out if, based on this space and what you're hearing, we're still working through to make sure it's perfect. I mean, it's going to take some time. Please feel free to talk to me if there's something that you think would make the chambers work better. We now have the coat racks outside for you. Spacing should be good for you, but please let me know so we can make this space as useful for you as possible. So, thank you.